Zak Brown said he would rather his two drivers lose the World Drivers' Championship to Max Verstappen than prioritize one of them over the other. And while that might sound dramatic, it's actually the right answer at this stage. McLaren has been heavily criticized both this season and last season for their refusal to choose one driver over the other when it comes to Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri in terms of a number one or priority driver. Right now, we're in a very tight championship battle, which originally was just between Lando and Oscar. But over the past few weeks, due to a number of different circumstances, we've seen Max Verstappen get back into this title fight. And one of the ways you could avoid this is by having one of your drivers take a step back, prioritizing the other driver, and making sure that that driver always finishes ahead of Max. Right now would be a terrible time to make that decision, which is what Zak was pointing at. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri heading into this Brazil race weekend are separated by exactly 1 championship point. Meanwhile, Max is actually trailing Lando by 36 points. And so while there's a single point between the two drivers, and McLaren has already locked down the Constructors' Championship, which is what really matters to the team and their operations, the idea that you would be telling either Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri to take a step back for the other driver for an individual championship that doesn't bring the team any additional funds would be a pretty outrageous ask at this stage. However, if you watch the interview and you watch Lewis Hamilton's press from this week, you may have heard people referencing the 2007 championship, because that was a championship where McLaren did not prioritize one of their drivers over the other. Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso were teammates at McLaren that year, and ultimately, with neither driver prioritized over the other, they ended up second and third in the championship with the exact same number of points. Due to the way tiebreakers work, Lewis Hamilton officially finished second and Fernando Alonso finished third, but Kimi Räikkönen actually finished first, taking the driver's title that year. And ultimately, Lewis Hamilton went on to win the championship the following year in 2008. But there's an amount of personal sting that comes from losing a championship when you feel like it was your teammate's fault. Ultimately, I do think that a team should prioritize the Constructors' Championship over an individual championship in terms of the actual value to the team. But when it comes to the driver's title, if you were to ask one of these drivers to step out of the way for a fight that is so close, I think you really have trouble getting that driver to come back to work next year. And you also would sort of invalidate the driver that you chose, so to speak, to become the champion. Whether Lando or Oscar wins, this would be their very first title. And there's a difference between prioritizing a driver all season, like Max is, or like Lando Norris was prioritized at McLaren after Oscar was out of the championship. But to sort of bestow a crown on one of these drivers with a 1-point difference would be a bit absurd. And to me, I also think it would completely devalue either of their championships, and see that neither Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri was prioritized, and one of them is able to come out with that championship title and beat Max as well as their teammate. I think that championship sounds a lot more earned than McLaren deciding right now that one of them is going to be the champion and asking the other competitor to step out of the way. But I'm curious how you feel. Do you agree with Zak, or do you feel like it's important for them to really lean in on one driver for the rest of the season and keep Max from winning a 5th world title?